Nicole, thank you so much for being here and taking the time out of your super busy schedule to sit down with us.
Thank you. It really means a lot, and it's an honor to be here.
Well, I would love for you to tell me a little bit about I know you just finished up a panel upstairs. What are you working on here in Austin?
Yeah, so I'm really proud of the work that Texas legislators like Senator Brian Hughes, we had so many other amazing legislators. The lieutenant governor helped prioritize some, Speaker of the House, Dustin Burrows. And the impacts of these policies are already being felt. And so some of those policies are things like where there's commercial lands. So where there's Costco's and coffee shops, allowing people to build row homes, which are oftentimes the exact kind of housing that young people, young families can actually afford versus these sprawling lots. What we're noticing is that people are buying, for the first time in American history, people on median are buying homes in their 40s. This was never the case. It was usually the case that somebody might go to college or they might go up, become a veteran, come home, have a good paying job, and be able to buy a home maybe in their late 20s, early 30s. So something is distorted about the market that is keeping young families and young people from the ability to own a piece of the American dream of homeownership.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're seeing kind of people move farther and farther into rural areas because the housing is so expensive, close to jobs, close to accessibility to cities and town centers. Now, I know we talked about this a little bit before, but you are originally from San Francisco. Is that right?
I lived in San Francisco.
Yeah. Okay. And what was your experience there? How did that propel you to do what you're doing now?
Yeah, living in San Francisco, you really learn about what not to do with the housing market. So in some way, I became a firsthand expert, along with all of the other people who, hats off to them, are struggling every day to be able to afford housing there. I was making just under $50,000, had a couple years prior graduated from a pretty good college. And when I was going, I ended up finding a deal that all my friends admired me for, where I was living in a 1-bedroom out of a 3-bedroom apartment. The second room, the landlord was living in the second room with his wife and his baby.
Wow.
Third room was a tech professional, shared a bathroom. Wasn't the cleanest bathroom, I might add. But living like this, even with spending very little on restaurants and mostly making sure that I focused on groceries when it came to eating needs, I was lucky to consistently have $1,000 in my bank account. That was like a successful month for me. So the idea of homeownership wasn't even a thought in my mind. The concept of having a small security blanket of $1,000 a month while working as a paralegal, working 45, 50 hours a week, something was wrong with this picture. And so that really caused me to look down the rabbit hole of how you screw up housing policy in San Francisco. So,
and what would you say is like the number one, what was the number one thing not to do? What did you see there that you're desperately trying to stop from happening here?
Yeah, there was this recurring pattern of a tyrannical few stopping housing for the many. It is literally the opposite of the free market. It's like the anti-market there. And so there was one guy who I mentioned a little bit earlier. He saw it as his mission in life to stop housing from being built. And a colleague of mine had gone and visited him in his office. He had a chalkboard up of all of the houses that were being built and the rezonings that they were trying to get. Sometimes they would try to get rezones to build another floor so that maybe their mom-in-law could live there. Senior homes are expensive. Or build another floor, they wanted to have another child. And he ended up, he would show up at every single zoning case and protest against it. Because of his protest, that would then put it through several months of review. And so the person who was trying to build, whether it was the homeowner, whether it was the builder trying to add another floor, trying to add more rooms for somebody, now they have to deal with land use consultants, permit expediters. And so the whole process, like typically it takes about 865 days to get a permit in San Francisco.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean,
that's impossible. wait, how many? That's like multiple years.
That's like you're pregnant and you now have almost a 2-year-old child. That's the amount of time it takes just to get a permit, not even to start
building,
Yes.
Not to even lay foundation, just to get a permit.
Yes.
Wow.
And this is where, like, there was a study here from UT Austin that showed every 3.5 months delay adds 5% to the price tag. So already San Francisco's at $1.3 million median home price. So do the math there.
Wow.
You're then adding another 5%. And then another 3.5 months goes by. Before you know it, if it takes about 2 to 3 years, you're now at like 30, 40%, depending on how long that permit takes to get back.
That's honestly, it's a little bit terrifying because it does seem organized. Even just someone protesting to cause it to go, it does seem a little bit organized on that side of things. Yeah. And it makes you wonder, like, what do people want us to do? Especially as 3 daughters of my own, a husband, we're at the beginning of like, we want to lay roots somewhere. We want to be able to afford a house. One thing that I talk about with with UnitedGen and our groups is we can always talk about problems, but what are the solutions?
Great question.
It sounds like you have potential solutions for us. Can you tell a little bit about that and where are you seeing this go?
Great question. So we kind of took a playbook, a page from the playbook, something Montana had implemented, something Florida had implemented. We worked with Senator Hughes, who's here at this conference today, to pass a bill that would by right, meaning automatically allow you to build townhomes or apartments up to 5 stories wherever there's commercial land.
Wow.
So typically think about where you go to grab your coffee, right, where you go to maybe you're going to pick up your laundry.
Your groceries.
Yeah. A bookstore. Okay. If you're taking your kid to a toy store. All of that is commercial land. And typically it's about 20% of a city is commercial land. Now, with Amazon and with also people working from home more, a lot of that commercial land is not nearly utilized as much as it was 10, 15 years ago. So we have a lot of that land that's sitting empty.
Okay.
Well, why not allow young professionals, right, young people who really want a place to live? They don't want to drive an hour and a half out.
Yep.
That has been an absolute game changer. It's been about 6 months, and from the stuff we've tracked, there's been over 3,000 units, meaning 3,000 homes that have been unlocked from that law.
Wow.
And I know that in Florida, within 9 months of that being enacted, there is about 17,000 homes that were built under that law. So this has been a total game changer. It is less red tape, less bureaucratic sort of inertia that's weighing folks down. And it means now that nurses, firefighters, struggling young people, we are at a historic low for the amount of young people who are actually able to access that American dream of homeownership. And it's time that we change that by getting government to work for the people, not the other way around.
Right. Listening to you talk, it seems very common sense.
I would hope so.
Right? This just seems common sense to me. And I mean, as conservatives, I love a free market, right? Freer the market, the freer the people. And here that's so applicable. We need a freer market. We need a freer market. We need to be able to build homes for people. I mean, 3,000 families that now have a place to live. And I know we were talking earlier about the homeless issue, and we need to also help. This is also helping in that area. Can you tell, as people are listening or watching, where can they go to learn more about this and even maybe get involved? What do you need?
Absolutely. So legislative session is going to come up. It starts heating up around September, October, November. Okay. And then it really takes off January and February. So we need people to sign up to our email listserv. It's texansforreasonablesolutions.org.
Love that.
If they're interested in all the data behind this, Pew Trust, Alex Horowitz, Pew Trust, he's just a strict data guy, has all of the data as to how places like Minneapolis, where they allowed people to build towards the needs of the market. If they see that there's you have 3 kids, right? You're trying to set down roots.
Right.
If they see that there's someone like you and there's a whole market that's not being served towards someone like you who might want to be close to a park, who doesn't need a 7,000 square foot lot, which is oftentimes mandated by most of the cities, huge lots. And I'm talking, there's even places across Texas that mandate 1 acre lots, 5 acre lots.
Wow.
Who can afford that? Maybe like at the end of your career once you've cashed out.
Yeah. Way down the road. Down the road. Right.
Exactly. Right. So we're currently living in, I want to call it a zoning regime that is forcing large lots or nothing. Like you don't have a piece of the American pie if you can't afford that. So that's something that a lot of legislators have made active strides on, but there's much more that we're planning on doing this next legislative session. There's something that I call stupid rules, silly rules that are currently employed in our building code. And so there's things like if there's a triplex that's allowed to be built, or just maybe a small apartment home building that's already zoned, it's already allowed by the city. Well, that apartment home building is now going to have to go through the same commercial standards that an airport is going to have to go to. And so it adds huge expenses. Nashville passed something to address this. North Carolina and Utah also passed this law. But it basically says we don't need the most expensive fire technology when there's cheaper fire technology that accomplishes the same fire safety standards. So housing, I think the cost has gone up by death by a million cuts. And what we really need is young people and folks like, your organization and people out there listening to this to get onto our email listserv, because we will be sending emails out asking for people to write us an email to their legislator to make sure that we can really move the pendulum on this issue.
So being that we're in Texas, and obviously agriculture is such a massive part of the Texan culture and industry, alone the economy, what is your answer, or what is your thoughts on the fact that when someone comes and says there's only so much land and there's only so much land for development, how do we approach that conversation?
That's such a good question. And this is probably one of the biggest benefits that aren't immediately obvious to the eye. Right now, 50% of farms, according to an American Farmland Trust study, are at risk in Texas of being sort of built over. Or what happens is maybe city of Austin or city of Dallas isn't allowing smaller kinds of living. And so what do you think that the home builders do?
They go further out.
Yeah. And it ends up ruining the soil that is so essential for the national security needs of Texas.
Yeah.
Should anything happen, should we not have the same sort of food supply chain that we need to rely on maybe from other states or even other countries? We in Texas have something precious. We have hundreds of millions of dollars in agricultural exports. But that is being threatened by not allowing people to embrace their property rights, what they want to do with their own land within cities. At the end of the day, somebody who's deciding to build a home has done a lot of research on what is the market that's out there. Maybe, they're looking for you and your husband, 3 kids. They know, well, a townhome might be perfect for them. They don't want that much yard, but they want just enough yard for their 3 kids. We are forcing people to have these huge lots. And as such, it's forcing out all of these other people and actually destroying the precious farmland that exists on our outskirts in Texas. So the Farm Bureau was a strong ally of ours in the last session, and they testified alongside of us for these same proposals. And, knock on wood, I think that they'll be with us going into the next session. But this is a huge national security issue. And it's also a huge rancher farmland issue in the positive. We had Representative Cody Vasut, who mentioned in a panel that I was on, he said, let cities do their city thing because rural folks want to be rural.
That's right.
And so allowing cities to embrace their property rights and allowing people to decide what they want to do with their lands is absolutely instrumental to farmers, ranchers, and their way of life.
It sounds like a really great grassroots movement, and it sounds like you're beating the drum, you're moving forward. Remind me again, one more time, where can people go to sign up to your email?
TexansForReasonableSolutions.org.